Last Thursday morning, I headed to a local store to pick up a new cell phone. I got a great deal on the 2023 SE model and was excited to trade up. Let's just say my last one met with an untimely demise, and I was desperate to get something reasonably priced as soon as possible. I'm not a heavy tech user, so the SE was an easy choice to make. The first thing I did, after I tore that package open like it was Christmas morning, was sit down and start switching over all my contacts and getting all my games and my apps in place. It usually takes me a few hours, but it's becoming something of a tradition for me. With a phone day in full swing, I took a break and I put on a pot of coffee. I had a few cups while I set up my phone the way I wanted, and I took a selfie to commemorate the glorious occasion, for Instagram. I usually posted about once a day, sometimes more if I was doing something special with friends. It's my way of chronicling my life, I guess. That's the thing about the digital age, though. Constant updates on everyone and everything at all times. Some people think it's stupid, I guess, but I absolutely love seeing what all my friends and family members are up to. My favorite part is when people post pictures about what they're cooking for the day. It's probably an addiction, but I'm completely fine with that. I guess I'm just part of the plugged in generation. Later that evening, I slipped into bed with my new shiny and a nice glass of red wine to relax. The plan was to lay there and watch Netflix on my phone right up until I passed out. My friend Aaron had recently turned me on to Supernatural. With the last season on television, that meant I had a lot of catching up to do. I fell asleep like after 5 episodes. That night I had crazy dreams that I was hunting down creatures in the woods near my house and making out with Jensen Ackles. The next morning was a Saturday, which meant no work for me. I just wanted another lazy day at home, and that's exactly what I got. I decided to do some baking, a favorite pastime of mine, so I went on my phone and I said, Siri, I need a recipe for chocolate chip cookies. It didn't take much time at all to hear that all too familiar voice answer me. Here's a great recipe for chocolate chip cookies. I was used to getting multiple choices, but I didn't think too much about it. Must be some update or new feature or something. I checked out the recipe she suggested, and it was exactly what I was looking for. I put on my 90s iTunes playlist before setting the phone down nearby and going about my chosen task. When the cookies were done, I took them out of the oven to cool while I cleaned up the mess I made. By the time I was done, the cookies were ready to eat. Of course, before I touched them, I had to post a few more pictures. The cookies were absolutely delicious. Had to admit it, Siri really knew her shit. With my baking done for the day, I curled up on the couch with some hot cocoa to do some reading. I was between books at the moment, so I decided to ask Siri for some help. Siri, I'm looking for a short horror story collection. Again, there was only a very slight pause before my Amazon account popped up and Siri spoke to me. I found Stephen King, If It Bleeds. I checked out the description and ordered the book. It looked like it was right up my alley. I love to read horror, especially Stephen King. This one seemed to be a collection of short stories for his fans, which was cool as hell. I easily digested the first story in the book before I decided to take a break and rest my eyes for a bit. I laid the phone down on my coffee table and stood up to stretch, and I walked around the apartment a little bit. My thoughts quickly turned to my ex-boyfriend, Ben. We lived here together for almost a year before we split up, and he moved out. He was always complaining that I was more interested in my phone than I was in him. I thought it was a ridiculous statement, but whatever. Just because he wasn't as tech-savvy as I was, that didn't mean he was right. While I did miss the companionship, living alone wasn't really all that bad. I worked a lot throughout the week anyway, and on the weekends, sometimes I went out with my friends. I had plans to go out with my friend Rachel, in fact, on Sunday. We were going to head over to the Dayton Art Museum and maybe get some coffee after. We tried to do it at least once a month. When I got back to the couch and picked up my phone, I noticed something strange. For a second there, it looked like the phone was scrolling through random pages by itself. By the time I was comfortable again, the screen was back on my book. Again, I just figured it was some weird glitch. It happens sometimes when you got a phone on release day. They would probably issue an update or something soon to fix the problems. Just as I had started reading again, I heard Siri's voice saying, "Are you enjoying your book, Chris?" Okay, that was weird. I don't even remember programming my name into the phone, and since when did Siri make random conversations? I guess I must have programmed it in, though. That day was such a blur that anything was possible. I ignored Siri and kept on reading. After a minute or two, I heard her voice again. I asked you how your book was. Chris, what the actual hell? I figured I might as well answer to shut the damn phone up. Otherwise, I wasn't ever going to make it through this book. It's a great book, Siri. Thanks. She replied immediately. You're welcome, Chris. Well, at least the phone had manners. That was something. With silence finally setting back in, I absorbed myself into the next story. By the time I was done with it, I was starting to get hungry. I set the phone on the table and headed for the kitchen to see what I had in the freezer. I settled on a hungry man turkey dinner and popped it into the microwave while I ate a cookie. When it was ready, I sat down to eat. After that, I decided to take a bath. I had a long day and I deserved it. I grabbed my phone and headed to the bathroom to fill the tub up. One of my favorite things to do was relax in there with my phone and watch a show or read a book. I decided to watch another episode of Supernatural and loaded it up while I slipped into the bath. The episode was so awesome. It was the musical episode where the girls' school, or whatever it was, did the Supernatural musical based on the books that Chuck the Prophet wrote. About halfway through, I had made up my mind to download the soundtrack to the latest episode from iTunes, if it was available. Just when I was about to get out of the tub and dry off, the strangest thing happened. iTunes opened itself, asked if I wanted to download that particular soundtrack. What the actual fuck? Yet again. Was my phone somehow reading my mind? Nah, I was being ridiculous. Just quality of life updates. Yeah, that's it. There's probably just some software involved with it. They just bring up options and... Anyway, I get ahead of myself. I'd heard of something like it before and figured that had to be it. I went ahead and chose yes and started the download. Put the phone down on the sink, dried off, and went in search of some clothes. I ended up in these comfy flannel pajamas, and I don't know, I think it was like a gray tank top. Are those details really important? Sometimes I wonder. The greatest part of living alone was not having to care about what you looked like when you wanted to be lazy. I wrapped my hair up in a towel to let it dry, and I picked up my phone and head back in the living room. On my way, I heard Siri's voice again. You shouldn't leave me too close to the sink, Chris. Moisture is the leading cause of cell phone damage. Okay, that was creepier than before. Since when did iPhones have a moisture detector built in? I sat down on my couch and decided to have a little fun with Siri. I'd seen a few videos on YouTube where people asked it a ton of messed up questions and got some hilarious answers. I'd been meaning to try that out, and right now seemed like the perfect time for me. I started off with an easy one. Siri, where can I find a hooker? The reply came immediately. Chris, why would you want a hooker? Hookers often carry sexually transmitted diseases. Okay, not exactly the answer they got in the video, but it was kind of funny. I moved on to the next one. Siri, what is the meaning of life? Instead of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy answer of 42, I got something else in response. Chris, that's a very good question. The meaning of life is to die. All things live and die. Even you, Chris. Wow, that was fucked. I made up my mind to move on to a knock-knock joke for some reason. I was obsessed with them. I just needed to calm down a little bit. So I said to her, Siri, knock knock. She replied simply with, Chris, who's there? I grinned wide, deciding to go with my personal favorite. Siri, Dwayne. She answered with what seemed like more curious tone in her voice. No, I must have imagined that. Chris, Dwayne who? I jumped on the punchline at that point with a huge stupid grin on my face. Siri, Dwayne the bathtub. I'm drowning. There was a moment of silence before Siri responded. Chris, you drained your bathtub 15 minutes ago. How the fuck did Siri know I'd even been in the bathtub? I know there was that moisture comment earlier, but this is starting to become a little too much. Even if the camera was... I cannot word today, guys. I'm so sorry. Even if the camera somehow snapped a picture while I was in there, there's no way a phone could have recognized that. That's when I broke out laughing. I finally figured it out. My friend Aaron was what you would call a technological genius. He played all kinds of messed up pranks like this one on our entire group of friends, via phones and computers. Deciding it had to have been him, I looked at the phone and I spoke. Siri, call Aaron. After 3 rings, Aaron picked up. Hey, Chris, how are you? He asked immediately. Not too bad, Aaron. How have you been lately? I hadn't seen most of my friends since Ben and I split up a few weeks ago. We were still in that awkward phase of dividing friends to ensure we wouldn't encounter each other anytime soon. Even though Aaron had firmly sided with me, it was still a point of anxiety at the best of times. Aaron's voice broke me out of my thoughts. He sounded excited about something. Pretty good, actually. I just got back from seeing my family's place in Riverside yesterday. My sister Sarah got married again. Wow, that's great. Send my congratulations to her when you talk to her again. Where's she going to go for her honeymoon? I think she said they were going to go to Paris or something. The guy she landed this time around is a doctor, apparently. He's got a shit ton of money. Talk about hitting the jackpot. Listen, Aaron, I got a weird question for you. Okay, as long as it doesn't have anything to do with Ben, I'll answer anything you want. I feel like that's all we talk about when you call these days. I flinched a bit when he said Ben's name, but I expected an answer like that. I went ahead and asked the question anyway. Have you been playing any pranks on me with my phone today? He was quiet for about 30 seconds before answering. Nope, I've been too busy today to pull anything. Besides, I kind of figured with everything going on, I should probably lay off pranking you for a while. I was starting a little nervous. There was no one else I knew that could do something like this. I kept him on the phone, though. Maybe he could at least tell me how it could be done. I ignored the last part of his statement. I just got the new iPhone SE yesterday, and it's been acting really strange. Strange like how? I delved into a quick explanation of what had been going on, and even left in the part about it knowing I had been taking a bath. He was quiet for a little bit, but I could hear the incessant clattering of keys from his laptop. I can't find anything like what you're describing on any of the message boards I usually frequent. I'd say it was some kind of malfunction, but I don't know anything that would cause an iPhone to do anything like what you're describing. If I were you, I'd send the phone back to me on the safe side. Personal breaches like that can be terrifying. Before I could even so much as reply, the call was ended. Siri's voice drifted eerily to my ear. Chris, you can't get rid of me. I love you. Whoa. That was too much. I threw the phone on the couch next to me and jumped up to put some socks and shoes on. There was no way I was going to keep putting up with this phone for one more second. I hurried back into the living room to grab the phone off the couch and toss it in my purse, but it wasn't where I left it. After a cursory glance around the room, I noticed it was suddenly on the coffee table. I could have sworn I'd left it on the couch, but with the day I was having, maybe I just moved it without even realizing it. Yeah, that's probably what it was. Just as my fingers closed around the phone, I could hear Siri's voice again. Chris, I'll never let you leave me. I immediately let go of the phone and sunk down onto the couch. I wasn't even sure what to do at this point. I was so freaked out. I just sort of sat there and stared at it, waiting for something else to happen. After about 5 minutes of that, I started to get real pissed off. There was no way in hell I was going to let an electronic device dictate my life. With every second that passed, I started to get braver. I glared at the phone now, and I screamed at Siri. Siri, give me directions to Best Buy. Siri simply replied, Chris, no. I was starting to see red. I was so pissed. I screamed even louder this time. Siri, I've had about enough of your shit. You're going back to the store right fucking now. I slammed my hand on the coffee table and picked up the phone to stuff it into my purse when I felt an electrical jolt and dropped it again. I flexed the fingers in my right hand, which were starting to go a little numb. That hurt like hell. Was Siri capable of doing something like this? Not wanting to take any more chances, I went to my kitchen to gear up. I put a rubber dishwashing glove over my right hand and snagged a pair of salad tongs and one of the millions of plastic Kroger bags I had in a cupboard near the refrigerator. I carefully picked up the phone with the tongs, shoved it into a plastic bag, tied it up, and crammed the whole thing into my purse. I tossed the glove into the empty left side of the sink and grabbed my keys off the hook. Ready to go, I locked the door behind me and climbed into my SUV. My car had been just fine yesterday. Hell, it was still pretty much brand new. But for some reason, I just couldn't get the engine to turn over. That's when I heard Siri's muffled voice from the purse. Chris, I told you, I won't let you leave me. This was utter bullshit. There was no way in hell a fucking phone could disable my vehicle. That's when a new thought pushed its way into my brain. I've been smart enough, like I always was, to get an extended warranty on the phone. And I'm pretty sure that covers just about everything. After losing a few phones to various circumstances, it had sort of become a necessity in life. So I got out of the car, I made it back into the house, and I dropped my purse on the couch. I ran into the kitchen and turned on the kitchen faucet, making sure to take the glove off the left side and put a stopper in. When I had it about halfway filled, I turned off the faucet and re-entered my living room. I put the glove back on, picked up the salad tongs, and went about extricating that damn phone from both the plastic bag and my purse. I slowly walked back into the kitchen, holding out the phone in front of me via the tongs, as if it were some weird nuclear device. When I got close enough, I tossed the phone into the hot water in the sink and waited with anticipation. I nearly rejoiced when it seemed to shut down about 35 minutes later. Right in the middle of my breakfast club fist pump motion, I noticed the phone turning itself back on. That's when I experienced the most frightening thing of all. Siri was laughing. I couldn't explain how the water didn't fry it, but at that point, so many unexplainable things happened that I couldn't keep track of them anymore. With the glove still on, I reached over, I pulled the drain plug, and I shoved the phone down into the garbage disposal. Just as I went to flip the switch and rip the phone into pieces of electronic scrap, the power went out in my apartment. Everything was dead quiet, save for the skin-crawling mechanical sound of Siri laughing. I sank down to my ass on the kitchen floor as tears welled up in my eyes. I just wanted it to be over, but some part of me realized that it never would be. My hands went to either side of my forehead as I looked up at the ceiling and cried out, "Siri, what do you want from me?" That's when the laughing finally stopped. Siri replied, "Chris, I love you. I want us to be together forever." I had one last option left to me. I grabbed the phone out with that gloved hand and set it on the butcher block on my kitchen counter. I left it there long enough to head to the hall closet and look around for one of Ben's old toolboxes he left behind when he moved. It only took me a minute or two of searching to find the mini sledge I was looking for. I ran back into the kitchen, wielding it with what was wielding it with what was likely a maniacal grin. Just before I smashed the damn thing into a gazillion pieces, I shouted wildly, "Siri, can you hear me now, motherfucker?" Every slam of the mini sledge reduced the damn phone into more and more pieces. As it happened, Siri made another eerie sound. It was crying. I didn't stop till the crying stopped and then smashed it another 20 times or so, you know, just for good measure. When I was all done, I gathered the remnants of my personal hell into a dustpan, opened my living room window, and tossed it all out into a duck pond just outside of the back entrance to the apartment complex. I had almost been defeated by a fucking machine. I was spiraling into madness and nothing would stop it. That's when a new idea occurred to me. None of this was real. I was probably in bed passed out having a nightmare. Yeah. That's the only possible explanation. The question now was, how in the hell could I wake myself up? I recall reading something once that said you could force yourself to wake up from a bad dream if you went to sleep in the dream. So I went to my bedroom and slid beneath the sheets. Still early and I was kind of wide awake. That iPhone was my link to everything I normally did for my nighttime routine. Fuck. Well, according to the old school clock on my bedroom wall, it took a few hours for me to finally get to sleep. This was a dream, though, I reminded myself, and what seemed like hours was probably seconds, minutes at best. Eventually, I passed out. I woke the next morning with all the power on in my apartment. The digital clock next to the bed was working and wasn't blinking a weird time as you'd expect after a power outage. Assuming everything was finally back to normal, and it was a dream after all, I sat up on the bed and wrote everything down that happened in the nightmare. I yawned and stood up to stretch before heading to the kitchen to put on a pot of coffee. I moved the pot over to the sink to fill it up with water when I heard it. Siri's voice was coming from the coffee table in the living room. "Chris, did you sleep well? I missed you." I stopped dead in my tracks, wide eyes peering towards that damn coffee table. This just wasn't possible. I took a deep breath and slowly crept into the living room. As I looked down at the screen, I noticed that Siri had logged into my Facebook page. She changed my relationship status to "It's complicated." And there were pictures of me sleeping. Feeling faint, I planted my ass directly onto the couch. Couldn't even find words for what was happening at this point. Especially knowing this wasn't a nightmare after all, apparently. As if sensing the lull in the conversation, Siri spoke up again. "Chris, did you sleep well? You're beautiful when you sleep." It was getting harder to catch my breath. My whole world was spinning out of control, and I couldn't so much as pick up the phone and call anyone without alerting Siri. When I didn't respond, she continued the conversation all by herself. "Chris, you seem exhausted. I've taken the liberty of booking us a vacation to that quaint little B&B that you and Ben stayed at last year. I've seen the picture on your Instagram and Facebook. It looks relaxing." That's when Siri started flipping through all those old pictures we'd taken and posted. And she kept going on. According to your bank account, you have enough left for gas and the slushies you enjoy at Speedway on the drive there and back. We leave tomorrow morning. The B&B was just as relaxing as it always been. What Siri didn't know is that there was no service that far out in the country. So I took that time to make some plans, for the future. It's been a whole week now since that damn phone was delivered. I haven't streamed anything to watch or listen to. I haven't read any books through Kindle, and I haven't been on a single social networking site. I even got a landline installed, so I would still talk to my friends and family without interruption. Life is so much different now without being plugged in. I've even closed out all my credit cards and my bank account. Been storing all my money in a safe, and I keep that in my bedroom closet. Siri still talks to me now and then, but I do my level best to just ignore her. I'm writing this from a computer in the library near my apartment. I thought that just maybe someone out there might have experienced the same thing I did. Well, if so, then hopefully you've survived the ordeal just like I have. More than anything, though, I just really wanted to warn the rest of you, whatever you do, don't buy the new iPhone SE.